First of all, if you are watching this video, I am so sorry. I would like to invite you into this safe space with me, and though I can't promise anything, I can promise that in this moment I am with you in spirit, holding your hand, and I send you an abundance of love. And it's been a long time since I've been vlogging, and there has been a lot of changes, a lot of physical changes. My body has changed, my hair has changed, and I'm in a new room, so the environment in which I am in has also changed, and yeah. I also need to mention that one of the big reasons why I stopped vlogging for a while is due to a series of bereavements that happened during the pandemic years. And even though it's difficult to talk about, it's important that we do talk about it, and it's important that we do, share our feelings and talk things through, which is why the first vlog that I'm doing since the last vlog has to be about this. It really has to be about this particular topic, because it's important that people know about it, especially like as neurodivergent people, we do experience grief differently, and it's important that we know that, because I didn't know that, and that kind of kept me stuck for a while. Everything's fine now, but yeah, so I feel like it's really important to put this particular video out there as the first one back. And this video is going to be essentially that. It's going to be discussing grief, discussing the ways that we as autistic people process grief. And of course this video today is going to be quite a heavy topic. All relevant trigger warnings regarding death and bereavement and loss apply here. Yeah, so here are some of the things that we as autistic people need to be on the lookout for. And before we get right into it, I just want to give you guys a quick moment, if you need to mentally prepare yourself for today's discussion. And before we get into exactly how bereavement can affect autistic people, we need to take a look at the grief cycle itself. Here is the cycle that is commonly used to describe the grieving process. There is denial, shock, avoidance and confusion, anger, frustration, irritation and anxiety, depression, overwhelm, helplessness and hostility, bargaining, struggling to find meaning and sharing your story, acceptance, moving forward and new plans in place. And though this seems to be going around nicely in a circle for everybody really, it's kind of more of a big squiggly squiggle cluster in which we go back and forth between each stages. Sometimes we repeat stages over and over again, but this is the general idea of how we describe the process. With us autistics, however, we can sometimes respond to these stages in a different order. Though it is fair to say that regardless of our neurotypes, we all have our own individual reaction to grief. But here there are some of the things that are common amongst autistic people who are currently experiencing bereavement. I just want to quickly say as well, please note, I am not a therapist, I am not a doctor. Every video that I put out there is from my own experiences, the experiences of the autistic peers that are close to me, and information gathered from reputable sources. I hope I said that right, I'm so bad with certain words, such as the National Autistic Society. And of course, I will put all links in the description below for you guys to go on and do some further reading. But here are some of the ways that grief can affect autistic people. As autistics, we tend to process things a bit differently from our non-autistic peers, especially if you're also ADHD, BPD, OCD or bipolar, for example. But for this video, I am going to try to stay on topic for stuff that is autistic specific. Now, there is lots of overlap between different mental health conditions and different neurotypes. And in my experience, I'm autistic, ADHD and PTSD. One big thing to start off with is the disconnect that we can feel between our bodies and our brains sometimes. Sometimes our bodies feel hungry and thirsty, but our brains do not get the memo, and so we're absolutely gasping for a bottle of water because our mouth feels like sandpaper and we have a headache, or until we feel sick or we've got tummy ache. Or just like staying on the go until our bodies are so tired from walking and buzzing around that the moment we finally stop for a minute, we are completely whacked out and forced by our bodies to finally have a rest. When dealing with the shock and emotional numbness that comes with grief, this problem can get considerably worse, and the disconnect grows wider or happens more often. You could easily go all day without eating and potentially put yourself at risk of being ill because you are just not getting the hunger cues. But on the flip side, the feeling of emotional numbness can cause you to want to sensory seek more as a way to like regulate emotionally. And this could cause you to want to seek out foods and drink, etc., so that you get that dopamine feeling that ultimately makes you feel better for a time. Grief really does affect everybody on such an individual basis, which makes this video quite difficult to do because there is no one shoe fits all when it comes to grief. It really is that individual. So if you experience none of these things, please don't feel like a lost cause. Please don't feel like something is broken. Everybody really is different. And in this video, I am going to give out some tips as well if you are struggling with anything mentioned today. Some autistics can also feel a disconnect between feeling an emotion and understanding what that emotion is. And that is something that I struggle with sometimes, especially when I'm really, really stressed. I will just feel things and just not ever be able to articulate them. It would just be like, for hours, and it's only when I stop feeling that feeling that I can sit back and think and be like, okay, well, this dot goes to this dot goes to this dot goes to this dot, and that is the feeling that I am feeling, or the feeling that I felt. As some autistics can also experience difficulty with understanding and recognize how we feel with our emotions, and this is definitely heightened during grief. I mean, it was for me, and it likely is for others as well. Another important thing to look out for is isolation, going mute, hiding away, and avoiding things, and avoiding talking about things. We sometimes get lost in our own heads. As we autistics, we know we have such a wide, expansive world in our heads. It's why we tend to be really imaginative and super creative, fantastic problem solvers. But in times of distress, we can really spiral into overthinking and getting lost. And because of that, we sometimes have this habit of hiding away, not talking, and being avoidant, so we can try think our way out of whatever situation we are going through. So essentially trying to logic your way out of it. From my personal experience, being avoidant and hiding away under the duvet to try to think my way out of a situation ends up just keeping me in the bad situation. I have struggled with going mute in the past, and during one very difficult time, I swear, I physically could not talk, like, at all. Like, this was just, it was not working, that I could not physically get the words out, and that was super hard because I really did want to talk, but my voice was just like, no, I have retired. And it took about until my body felt fully calm and safe again for my throat muscles to like relax and not be so tense. I am struggling with tension again at the moment, but I can still talk, so we will push through. We will try our best to push through. During grief, we need to also be aware of how our tolerance level for sensory input and interactions can just drop. Suddenly, every little thing is overwhelming, every interaction is too much. It's all too loud, too bright, and nothing feels right on our skin. And every single person that comes up to you is just the most annoying person ever. During grief, we are already emotionally overwhelmed. We are already in a state of high stress. Everything is already too intense sometimes. So of course the whole world is gonna feel too intense for a bit. You're gonna be more susceptible to having meltdowns, shutting down, and burning out. I tend to shut down more than I do melt down. But both of these things are equally very difficult to experience. During this time, we could be snappier and more likely to respond with anger and just have this sensation inside of us that there's all this boiling water, and the boiling water is just boiling over and boiling over and boiling over. We can also experience extra executive function problems that come due to the stress of experiencing a loss, such as being able to work, plan anything, remember things, concentrate, and even look after ourselves can become one hell of a challenge. Another thing which myself and my autistic peers have experienced is being really restless at times, like ants in your skin restless. And it's restlessness such as itching to be doing something, craving distractions, to chase anything that would keep us away from thinking about the loss. Trying to hold ourselves back from feeling that we need to feel, out of fear that, if we start these feelings, that we could be feeling this fear forever. But I promise you, it is definitely not forever. For some autistics, there could also be some confusion in understanding what's actually going on, and it could take longer compared to non-autistics to understand and start the process of coming to terms with not being able to see someone again. Some autistic people may struggle with the social aspects that come with loss, such as funerals, planning funerals, sorting things out after a loss, and even engaging in conversations about the loss. One really important thing to mention is that a death may come with also losing a sense of routine and structure, and having to adapt in some cases quickly to a massive pile of new changes. For some people, autistic or not, a death may cause your entire life to change. And as we know, big changes or sudden changes can be particularly difficult for us autistic people to process and work through. So how can we cope and manage and create strategies to support ourselves or an autistic loved one who is currently experiencing a loss? If we know a death is coming up, we can make a plan on what we do after it happens. We can work out what part of our routine will change, and we can start to adapt to those changes. Maybe not all at once, but bit by bit and piece by piece, we can slowly transition to a new sense of structure and routine. We can ask friends and family to help remind us to eat or drink water, or set reminders on our phones and have post-it notes around the house. If you have an Alexa, I don't have an Alexa, but I know my friends who do have Alexas, they're able to set reminders and alarms on their Alexas to remind them to do things. We can increase the amount of accommodations around us, such as post-it notes, as mentioned just now, reminders on our phones, or get some earplugs or headphones, have more lamps or sensory-friendly lights around the house instead of using the dreaded big light. We can do our shopping online or visit places that we know are definitely going to be sensory friendly. And I know some supermarkets in the UK will have a sensory friendly hour for going and getting your groceries. We can also reduce stimulation around us just for a time, just to really reduce anything that could be contributing to feeling overwhelmed. Write down or draw what we are feeling and how we are feeling it. Turn these feelings into art, poetry, music, and just really take all of the feelings that are being felt and turn them into ways where you can express those feelings. You don't ever have to share your art or your poetry or your stories or your music, but just by turning these feelings into another form of expression, I found from a personal experience really transformative. And I think when I was experiencing it was like a wave of just a loss after loss, and I got back into songwriting, and I started to just put lyrics down to describing how I was feeling these things, what was going on, and using music and poetry as a way of articulating those. And most importantly, do not hide away. That was one of the things that I regret doing when I was experiencing waves of grief, was isolating myself. Please, please do not. The one thing that you take away from this video today is please do not isolate yourself. Let people help. Let yourself be around others. Don't hide away like I did. And so yeah, please do not hide away. There are people out there who love you, and there are people out there who want to help. And don't shut yourself off from your community and avoid things and avoid people. Allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to love, and allow yourself to be loved. Let people chat with you. If you are comfortable with physical touch, then let people hug you and hold your hand and talk about it. And yet there is no one way to grieve. It can differ from person to person, but it can also differ from day to day, and it could also differ from loss to loss. So like the experience of losing my granddad, the grief I felt losing my granddad was different from the grief I felt when I lost Flick, and was different from the grief I felt when I lost my nana and my friends during 2021. So one last thing I would like you guys to really take away from this video is to give yourself time and give yourself a lot of grace. Don't push yourself to rush through these stages. Don't feel bad or discouraged or anything if you find yourself repeating stages again. I know there was lots of stages that I repeated over and over again when I was experiencing grief. There was times where I thought, okay, maybe I'm fine, no, maybe things are okay, and it'd be like, boom, we are back in the trenches. And you know, it can go back and forth like that. And sometimes, yeah, you feel fine, and then all of a sudden there's just this huge wave that just goes whoosh over you. And I know there was a couple of moments whilst filming this, I had to just like stop, because it was just like, okay, I need a minute. I need a big minute. I once saw a quote online that said, grief is like a scar. When the wound is fresh, it hurts, it's painful, and it's agonizing. But then the pain lessens as the scar heals. However, when you look at the scar, you may feel a reminder of that pain. But over time, those reminders hurt less and less. A famous queen once said that grief is the price we pay for love. But this queen is telling you that you should keep on loving anyway, and love every day, and love all that is around you. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Thank you so much for returning back to this channel as I return back to you guys. I genuinely hope that today is a lot brighter than yesterday, and tomorrow brighter still. I love you, buddy.